Hi,
this is Vaishnavi from Exhibitions.
and this is Shubhashri from Education. Today, in this episode of Art Sparks, we are going to discuss a rather memorable textile.
Curious to know more? Keep watching. So, Vaishnavi, the object that you've picked for this episode is a really interesting piece. And I know that it's a tie-dye piece. Ever since I was growing up, we have had tie-dye pieces in my mom's wardrobe, my grandmom's wardrobe. And obviously I know it by many different names, but it literally means you tie a textile and then you dye it. But this one is rather unique. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about it?
So, yes, tie-dye is everywhere. I am wearing it today.
You are. I just
Specifically
noticed.
for this episode. So tie-dye, also known as Bandhani, is something which is present everywhere, but is specific to Gujarat in this case, because the textile, the Odhani, comes from the Kutch region of Gujarat.
Okay.
It was probably made in the late 19th century or the early 20th century. And what is super special about this textile is the central motif, which is, also tie-dyed.
Yeah.
And within that, there are smaller circles, and around it, there are other circles, and they are all tie-dyed.
Is it like an odhani or a veil? Is that what it is?
Yes. The word itself has other meanings. I mean, it means to wear something on the head or to veil something.
Right.
And the word Odhani is not just specific to Kutch, but also other regions in India. You might have even heard it in Punjabi.
Yeah.
And so, the specific Odhani is something which is worn on the head. A woman typically wears it with a blouse and a long skirt. And, sometimes it's just free-flowing. The other times they drape it around. So, it all depends on that.
That's very interesting. Like you mentioned, the other thing that really was like something that struck out is the fact that it has these circles in the middle. And I've actually never seen tie-dyes with this pattern. Why is that?
So the circles that you see on the Odhani, because of those circles, this textile could also be referred to as Chandra Khani.
Okay.
Some scholars identify it as that. And the reason that these circles exist is because they are compared to the moon quite a bit. So Chandra or moon, Chandra Khani, so the face of the moon in some sense. And so the idea is that whenever the bride wears a Chandra Khani, and like she's sitting amongst all the onlookers, oftentimes there's so much effort that goes into the textile and beautifying the textile and the bandha work that they compare the beauty of the bride with the beauty of the textile.
Yeah, and I mean there's so much effort that's put into making this one piece, so it would obviously make sense to kind of give this also as much importance as the person that's wearing it or the person they're supposed to go to, right?
Yes.
So this idea of how you said that you compare the beauty of the bride to the beauty of the textile itself, it's a very unique idea. I mean, I've never heard of it before.
Yeah, and it's almost like their personalities merge.
Yeah.
And so that's what's quite memorable in terms of textiles. Like it comes so close to your body. In this case, it's like, around your head and the rest of your body, that the more you wear it, like the essence of it kind of stays. Unlike other forms of art, looking at textile is almost like looking at the personalities of people who worn it.
That's a very beautiful take on understanding textiles and looking at textiles. I also noticed that the textile is crushed, and from what I know about tie-dye, it's crushed because it's not entirely open. I mean, only when you open it entirely and then you start using it, the crushed effect goes away. But in this case, it exists. So was it never used, or was it just...
Yeah, that's a good speculation. Probably it wasn't used as much because usually Bandhani textiles, when they are given to somebody, they are uncrushed. They are crushed, or they leave the impressions because the idea is to also know that, hey, this is tie-dyed, and there are like, hundreds of ties and dyes that are made, and you must see that, this is the work that's gone into it. But at the same time, stretching it and using it is something that happens at a much later stage once you receive the textile. You don't see that here, but at the same time, it tells us a lot about the history of, how those patterns were made.
The other thing, so when I was just looking closely at the piece, one is obviously these circles that looked very unique, and also this band of gold. What's unique or different about it is that it doesn't run throughout the textile, it's just this one chunk of gold band. Would you know anything about why that is?
That's a great observation again. So here's the thing, with this Odhani, a lot of people studied it almost like anatomy, because it has like these parts. There's the front, the back, the side borders have its own sort of names going on, the central motifs. But the curious thing about the gold border is that it's only woven and appears when the woman wears it. And it's the only visible part. So it might be visible here or here, but the rest of the textile which goes back or inside is not visible. So they don't weave the gold border throughout it. The idea is to also be more frugal, but also be intelligent about how this textile is made.
It's a very innovative idea. And what about the other gold area? So there's this very thin gold trimming that kind of runs through it. And there's also one in the center.
Yeah, so there are 3 gold trims.
Okay.
You're right, there's one in the center, top and the bottom. So it's possible when a woman wears it, that gold trim kind of goes around. That's also one way of like beautifying the textile, but without including the gold weave around it.
Yeah, it's really cool to imagine like a real person wearing it. So if I were to do that, maybe the circle would come at the back, right?
Yeah.
And the bigger gold border somewhere in the front.
Yeah.
And the trimming goes around the entire piece.
Yeah, you got it right, Shubhashri.
I was also looking at it a little closer, and I noticed that there are multiple colors involved in the making. I mean, the obvious ones are obviously this dark brownish, blackish color, and a lot of red. But I also see traces of like cream, whitish, yellowish tints. If you can kind of walk us through the entire process of how this piece was made.
Yeah, absolutely. We can speculate about it because a lot of textile making techniques are still a mystery, because certain communities carried them and pass it on as like secrets, like dyeing secrets, sort of, and which is great. We must honor that.
Yes.
At the same time, we can study the dyes and sort of speculate how it must have been made. So if we look at the colors of the textile, right, because there is so much chemistry involved in the dyeing of this Odhani, you can say that they might have started off with the lightest color. Let's just say a yellow, because they would always use natural dyes. And then if indigo was used on the top of it, or like a dye, a blue, a darker blue dye, it would combine with a yellow and form sort of a green. Indigo also sometimes would be like a green color instead of a blue color. So that's why when you see the smaller dots, you see yellows and greens, which were the first ties and dyes. And then when you look at the larger ties and dyes, which are the circles which have the red in them, they probably came in much later. And then finally the black that you see could have been a combination of your, red, yellow, blue, green, combined into like this really dark shade of like brown, black that you ultimately kind of see it covering the rest of the textile.
This is really cool. And I've also heard that especially in the dyeing processes in parts of Gujarat and Rajasthan, nature and natural elements play a big role.
Absolutely, yeah. And because there's so much dyeing, untying, and then dyeing again happening, in that process, the water, because the cloth is washed every time it is dyed, it's dried in the sunlight. And then, so the sunlight, the water, and sort of the climate plays a huge role in how these Odhanis were made at the time. And even the plants out of which the dyes are, taken out of, kind of added to the whole process.
Yeah, that's really cool. To kind of understand, when you see it, it's one thing to appreciate the aesthetic part of it, but to understand the making and the time and labor involved in it, it's just a whole other thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So Shubhashri, I have a question for you.
Okay.
So what kind of elements or motifs do you see in the Odhani?
So other than the circles, you mean? The bigger bits?
Yes.
I mean, the tiny bits, I see a lot of florals. I also see, like this border, which is very geometric, like a box, like a rectangle. But also florals within it. and something that looks like a mango. I know it as the keri or the ambi or the paisley pattern.
Yeah.
And this larger chunk looks like a bread, like a piece of bread.
It's kind of important to note that there are no human figural elements in the Odhani, and it's mostly like natural elements.
Right.
And so even within the circles, you see like other like floral motifs in it, and oftentimes the corners have the the almond shaped or the mango shaped pattern.
Yeah.
And so all of these follow this specific order, and if you find other Odhanis from this specific period, you will notice this repeating, but they change according to the color combinations and within Kutch, the sort of communities it belong to.
For this season of Art Sparks, we invited some of our friends like Vaishnavi to come and talk to us about a chosen object from the exhibition, Visible Invisible, Representation of Women in Art Through the Map Collection. And Vaishnavi, I was really curious to see what you pick, especially because I know of your interest in textiles. I mean, ever since I've known you in MAP, I know that this is something that you're really passionate about. But I have two other questions.
Yeah.
One is, why did you choose this for this episode, this particular textile piece from the exhibition? And why is this in the exhibition itself? How does it fit into the narrative of the exhibition?
So the reason that I chose this textile, I love all textiles
Of
equally.
course you do.
But this one, it had sort of a mysterious aspect to it, but at the same time, it connected with the larger narrative of the exhibition, especially the power dynamics that are involved in wearing clothing. Sometimes clothing, pieces of textiles are underrepresented or considered to be not so important. But this Odhani shows us that it is very important for women. They kind of tell us the memories, like they contain memories of women in it, the personality of the wearer. And it's important to study that along with other pieces of art in the collection. I would say, the textile kind of tells you about its relationship to the past, but also like to the present with other artworks around it.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I'll be honest, I was one of these people who wouldn't really care so much about textiles as a genre. But yeah, conversations like these, and once you get to dig deeper into the histories and the context of pieces, it just throws up so many interesting ideas and concepts and conversations. So yeah, it's really cool.
That's great. Yeah.
Come see objects across genres of photography, textiles, and many more in the exhibition Visible Invisible, Representation of Women in Art Through the Map Collection.
Check out MAP's website and social media handles to know everything about what MAP is doing. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and explore all the Art Sparks episodes.
Thank you for joining us.
Bye.